Coffee Talk is a visual novel developed by Toki Productions and released on the 29th of January 2020 for Microsoft Windows, Mac OS, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. You can basically play it anywhere you want. I'm going to talk to you about what's good and what is not good with this game. Let's make it a habit of starting with the good things. I think the design of the game is really good, especially the interface. It has a great color palette, it's very easy on the eyes, the gameplay is sufficient, simple but yet enjoyable, consists mostly of preparing drinks for customers following a 3-ingredient recipe, similar to other games like the Red Strings Club and Valhalla. It stands out even if it's simple, although I've seen people criticize this because of the gameplay. Because of its repetitiveness, these games rely on the narrative aspect, and I think that's where the problem lays. It has decently good animations, exceptional soundtrack, very calm and perfect for any night, and gives me the feeling of a particular lo-fi playlist I have for rainy days, or even for having coffee or hot drinks, which is the intended mood of the game. I really like the melodies and the progressions of the soundtrack, and it sets the mood well. Something else I'd like to add is that I enjoyed the view you get from the outside street. It's very nice. Each individual drink received attention, and seeing your creation is very pretty. I would also like to add that it has very interesting lore. Imagine a city divided by races, that being elves, succubus, werewolves, vampires, orcs, Nekomine, which are basically humanoid cats, mermaids, and vanilla humans, and well, the inevitable racism and discrimination that originates from this, especially if it is recent, and it is present with humans as well. And they enrich their story with information on how they coexist, their dislikes between each other, quirks and activities. For example, vampires get blood from hospitals and mix it with drinks. Werewolves need to calm down because they have a monthly rage attack. This can be done with a drink, an activity, or even sex. Nekomine, which are the cat people, commune in cat form, etc. In general, the dialogue dwells too much on how these people procreate, or puts a lot of focus on sexual encounters for some reason that is beyond my understanding, and I did not find it funny nor entertaining, but we're not in the negative part yet. To keep up with the good things, the phone is a good addition. It's constantly being updated, and it's handy for knowing more about things in general, recipes and people specifically. It has good character design. In general, most of them are very unique, only a couple look a bit meh in my opinion, but generally speaking they're all very glamorous. Freyja is by far my favorite, and I have a few things in common with her, so I felt identified. That's what happens when a character is done properly and you're actually able to relate to them, instead of just naming a bland character. They do a good job with characters like Freyja, and that explains why she gets so much screen time, and sometimes the dialogue is digestible and feels very casual. Now let's start with some of the bad things, and starting off with the protagonist, which is I think one of the central problems of this game. At the very beginning we get the chance to name our character, more on that later, and we do not get a direct explanation as to why, but we do gather bits of information about our character, like for example they're high income, a bit of a loner, they know how to fight properly, they're not married, they're probably male, although this is merely an assumption, and they have a very distinctive way of speaking. To me it feels a bit fake or pretentious and even forced, like someone who thinks of themselves as better and they like to hear it. I just feel this is the case with the character. Again, this is a profile I'm forming from all of the bits and pieces of information we get about our character. They have a very specific way of behaving and speaking. This detaches us from our barista because we never see them, and we are not allowed to make our own choices in this game. There are games that gives us a character with a background and a setting, but allows us to progress the story however we want. Let's call this type 1 for the sake of the video. Other games gives us basically blank characters for us to modify and create to our heart's content. This will be type 2. And there are other games that makes us stick with pre-designed protagonists with unique ways of speaking and thinking and behaving, with pre-written personalities and backgrounds. These are the most common characters in video games. This will be type 3. Our protagonist does not fall under any character. The problem I have is that we never see the character, but we are supposed to project ourselves a bit, hence the freedom to give the game protagonist our name. The problem is the character already has a pre-written personality and behavior, which to a certain degree makes me feel disconnected from my character, despite having my name. It's just a different person. I'm not saying we should have custom dialogue, although it would have been interesting, or allow us to customize our character or anything, but if you're gonna take the type 1 approach, stick with it. If you're going for the type 2 approach, stick with that. Same with type 3. Stick with it, not just stay in the middle. To make matters worse, the game acknowledges we the players will probably won't like how the main character is represented. We're not supposed to project, but we are criticizing directly for doing so, even though the game encourages this behavior to begin with. I thought this was interesting for a mere second, but consider what I said about the characters. If you're going to criticize the player for thinking this way, at least stick to a type of character, because to me this feels strange. It doesn't fall in a category, nor does it stand on its own. This has repercussions in the narrative. At one point, my character claims to know how to make a tea. How am I supposed to know this tea? Guess? My barista said they know how to do it, but I as the player don't? Then why did the barista said yes? How am I supposed to know if not by randomly putting together ingredients? And the vague description doesn't help at all. It's simply bad design. There's no way to learn it other than trial and error, yet my character claims to know how to make it. We connect with games on a personal level. That's a lot of the time what draws us in. This is initially what drew me in. So, a game about talking to people and making drinks face to face should focus on that. I was quite enjoying the game, and I know this is gonna sound strange, but the point of me being interested in a game like Coffee Talk was how down to earth and mundane it seemed. Now, the deal with the different races was excellent. It really spiced things up and made the experience not only more memorable, but better. But the part of the astronaut where several concepts are introduced like aliens, to me that's very strange and uninteresting. It really made the experience less enjoyable to me. You may argue, it already has vampires. What do you expect? Well, certainly not this. A problem I have with the narrative is why the appeal of mentioning sex so often, or how other people procreate, including the werewolf or the aliens. I found it quite strange and not very funny or charming or interesting, more like pondering a bad joke. It's the kind of thing that's hard to miss. I said in my Sunset Overdrive video that I'm not a big fan of comedy, and most of the jokes did not do it for me. I'm not a fan of the humor in this game, and I can see that it was influenced by anime and Japanese media. Not saying there's something wrong with that, it's just that I don't like it. Coffee Talk to me feels shallow. It wants to explore topics like politics and social issues and touches on philosophy here and there, but it doesn't go deeper. It scratches the surface, but it stays there. I think it wants to cover many things like social issues, being one of them for example, but it ultimately falls short. It's just a set piece, and the point of the variety of races living on Earth is simply an excuse to make varied and, well, different characters. This game communicates to you directly what the writers think, not what the character will think. Coffee Talk tells you what the writer thinks. It is saying it directly to you. It's not writing dialogue for the character, it is writing their thoughts and putting them under the character's name on the script. Ultimately, it is merely an opinion, not dialogue. Characters act uncharacteristically at times because of this. Another problem I have with the narrative is that not everyone is friendly or is going to be friendly 100%. It's illogical to introduce a new character, then present it by an already existing character and say, "Attention everyone, in this coffee shop, greet this person you have never met before and engage in conversation," to all of the people in the coffee shop, even if this is fantasy, quote unquote. It's ridiculous. That's simply not how people work. Overall, with inconsistencies in the dialogue, weird conversations about unnecessary facts, a shallow and insufferable protagonist, questionable comedy, and a lack of understanding about opinions and human conversations, I personally did not enjoy the writing on this game. The game puts a lot of its apples on the narrative, and sadly, pretty art and soothing music isn't going to cut it. So, to reach some sort of conclusion, I want to mention one more thing before we reach the conclusion, and that is that the explanation as of why the player can replay certain days and ultimately a revelation in the story is by far one of the worst I've seen in recent games. Just like the ending of Thimbleweed Park, I think that is one of the big factors that destroyed my experience with this game. I found this very hard to finish for a game that puts a lot of focus on its dialogue and narrative. Despite it being short, it felt longer than needed because I did not enjoy it. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, I was expecting something else, something more down to earth and mundane, with interesting characters, dialogue, and personalities, not only one or two characters. And it's the same deal as with my Thimbleweed Park video that I did a long time ago. I played the game hoping to scratch the itch of a certain type of game, so basically I was looking for a different experience perhaps. I came into this game thinking this is a mundane game about a mundane thing, talking to people at a cafe, get to meet them. I wanted to say I found a game about a mundane concept that is excellent, like Firewatch or like Night in the Woods. You know how I say that there are a few games that are set on gold pedestals by players in a lot of my videos? Well, here's the example with me. So far, one game was able to top the writing of Firewatch or the experience I had with Night in the Woods and match the personal connection I established with these games, and that was Disco Elysium, and you can tell because I don't shut up about it. It will probably work for some people, Coffee Talk this game, not for me, just not something I enjoyed or would like to play again or even recommend. But if the concept that I did not like does seem appealing to you, then with all reason go ahead and I hope you enjoy it. It's a game that relies a lot on narrative, has inconsistencies, and feels as deep as an espresso shot, but not as strong. It's the mundane done poorly, starring an empty protagonist. Writing is important. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember that this is simply my opinion, this is simply my experience with the game. Do not annihilate me because I have a different opinion. And sorry if my voice sounds strange, I just got braces on and they are very uncomfortable. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Take care.